Welcome to CaptureCast, the podcast about English. Today in our first ever episode, we will talk about the future of the automotive industry, so it is perfect for business English learners. I'm Alex, and today, I'm joined by Emily.
Hey everyone, it's great to be here. I'm excited for today's topic because we're diving into one of the most transformative sectors in the world, the car industry. From electric vehicles to global shifts, there's a lot happening right now.
Absolutely. The car industry is going through one of the most significant changes we've seen in decades. Between electric vehicles, changing regulations, and the evolving competition from new players, it's fascinating to see how things are developing in different parts of the world.
Definitely. Take Tesla, for example. They've completely reshaped the landscape, not just in the US, but globally. The shift to electric vehicles is happening faster than anyone expected, and Tesla's played a huge role in that. Their market share is growing rapidly, and they're influencing not only American manufacturers, but also European and Chinese automakers.
Right, Tesla has really disrupted the industry. In the US, it's almost impossible to talk about electric vehicles without mentioning Elon Musk's company. But what's interesting is how traditional automakers are reacting to Tesla's success. Companies like Volkswagen have been ramping up their electric vehicle plans too, haven't they?
Exactly. Volkswagen has set some pretty ambitious goals to become a leader in electric vehicles. They've pledged to have 70 new electric models by 2030, and they're investing billions into AV technology. In Europe, there's a real push to move away from internal combustion engines with stricter emissions regulations.
It's crazy how quickly it's all changing. Just think about China. China is leading the way when it comes to electric vehicle adoption. The government is heavily supporting EVs through subsidies, tax breaks, and infrastructure development. It's really reshaping the market, and it's driving massive competition.
Oh, totally. China is now the largest electric vehicle market in the world, and it's no surprise. Companies like BYD and NIO are growing rapidly, and in 2024 they even got bigger than Tesla in China. But on the other hand, Tesla has a factory there, and their vehicles are more affordable for Chinese consumers. It's fascinating to see how different countries are supporting EV adoption in their own ways.
It's a bit of a race, right? The US has been leading in terms of innovation with companies like Tesla, but Europe and China are catching up fast. And what's really interesting is how they're not just competing and overcome the US on technology, but also on manufacturing. In Europe, we're seeing new factories pop up, and in China, they've been able to build these huge production lines much faster. So there are so many new brands and joint ventures between Chinese startups and traditional car manufacturer. Wow, that is just crazy.
That's a great point. Let's not forget the role of infrastructure. In the US, charging stations have been growing, but they're still playing catch-up compared to what we're seeing in Europe and China. It's one thing to have great cars, but if you can't charge them, that's a huge barrier.
That's true. In China, they've already got a massive network of charging stations, and it's incredibly convenient. I mean, when Tesla entered China, they didn't just build cars, they built a whole ecosystem. But in Europe, the charging infrastructure is improving as well, especially with the European Union's support for electric vehicles development.
Definitely. And then we have the environmental aspect to consider. The US is really focusing on reducing carbon emissions, and countries in Europe are doubling down on sustainability. It's not just about the vehicles anymore, but how they're made and how they're powered.
Emily, let's say it this way. There's a growing emphasis on sustainability in the supply chain. With the push for ethically sourced materials and carbon-neutral manufacturing processes, it's not just about the end product, but how it's created. The car industry is evolving into something that's not just about driving, but about doing so responsibly.
And that's the big challenge for traditional manufacturers. Volkswagen, Ford, GM, they're all in this transition phase. They built their legacy on combustion engines, but now they have to completely pivot. It's going to be tough, but there's no choice. The world is demanding cleaner, more sustainable cars.
Exactly. It's a huge undertaking, and a lot of companies are playing catch-up, especially when you look at the success of Tesla. But I think what's going to happen is that the more established brands will start catching up. Volkswagen, for instance, has really embraced EVs, and they're making significant strides in that direction.
It's going to be an exciting few years. The car industry is changing faster than ever before, and it's interesting to see how companies like Tesla, VW, and even newer players will adapt to global markets. The future of the car industry is definitely electric, and the competition is going to keep pushing innovation.
Well, Emily, I think that wraps up a very interesting discussion on the changes in the car industry. From the rise of electric vehicles to the competition in the US, China, and Europe, it's clear that the future is shifting under our wheels.
Definitely. So we've reached the end of this episode. I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode of Capture Cast with Alex and me. We'll be back soon with more insights into the world of business, politics, and other fascinating topics.
I would also like to thank everyone, and I hope you enjoyed listening to Emily and me. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you enjoyed this episode. Join our Capture English community with the link below. See you next time.